Welcome, everybody, to the Gimmick Infringement podcast. I am Tyler McDowell Blanken, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Brad Winchester. Brad, today is extra special. We have a new concept, new episode of GI, and to help make this happen with us, we have an incredibly special guest. He's a fellow member of 19 Media. I'll run through all of his titles here. He's the unofficial mayor of the Bay. He is Chloe's dad, and most notably, perhaps, he is the host of the Close Up Magic podcast. Stephen Cameron is in the building. Stephen, how are you?
I'm doing well. I particularly like Chloe's dad. That's probably the one that sits the most. Chloe is my 11th month old today. She turned 11 months today.
Oh, wow.
Daughter. So we are recording this on her birthday, and I'm psyched to get this down. She's taking like a good 2-hour nap. So, you know, Chloe's dad, mayor of the Bay. I'm here. Let's do it.
Shout out to Chloe. Happy birthday, Chloe. Steve, I don't know if you told us that. That's huge news.
You know, I got to drop it live.
I love it. Well, something that I really admire is obviously knowing Brad for many years as I have. He is such a proud father of Freya, our favorite 5-year-old.
Nice.
And kind of seeing your tweets and hearing more about your experiences as fathers, I think that's a nice connection. We're not going to, I think, delve too deeply into fatherhood on this episode.
Save that for another episode.
Episode. But I admire you guys and you know, the awesome fathers you are.
Appreciate that.
So, Stephen, Brad, listeners, we just want to give you some background on this episode. Stephen is, as we said, the host of the Close Up Magic podcast, delving into the news and notes of the Orlando Magic. I'm sure we'll hear more about that later. And as you know, Brad and I talk about the wrestling industry and much, much more every single Monday. We think there's a lot of overlap between professional wrestling and professional basketball. So we're going to get into that conversation today, some history about the partnership, as well as selecting who we think would be great NBA players turned professional wrestlers. So first, Stephen, what is your first memory of professional wrestling? Because to pull the curtain back a bit, Brad and I saw via Twitter, I want to say this was maybe summer 2022. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You were live tweeting from a local wrestling event in California, Hood Slam. So we know that you are a wrestling fan. Please feel free to share any Hood Slam anecdotes, but also what's your first memory of watching wrestling and thinking, wow, this is different. I kind of like this.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start the very beginning. I actually grew up, spent my first 10 years of life in Belgium. And so back then, I didn't know much about wrestling at all. So when I first came to the States, in 99, that was like my first kind of like introduction to wrestling, and moved to Orlando, which is like, you know, I guess now kind of turned into a bigger wrestling city with like WrestleMania stopping by there, I think, you know, every year it seems like. But, you know, so like, I think like my first memories of wrestling was like guys like Hulk Hogan, guys like Austin, Stone Cold Austin, guys like The Rock, like that whole generation of wrestlers were the guys that who I will admit, and you guys know this, but for like now that we're live on the podcast, like I'm not the biggest wrestling fan. Like I admire it, I appreciate it from afar. Every now and then I'll tune into something, but like I'm not the person that's going to tell you the latest rivalries, and I probably don't know like everyone who's active on every roster right now, but I do like have so much admiration for this sport and what it does. I just don't have the mental capacity to take in too much more than what I'm already doing. You know, with basketball, like when I started deep diving into basketball, you know, about a decade or so ago, I actually had to let go of like football and baseball because I just didn't have the bandwidth to keep up with it. So that's kind of like where I'm at now, like living in Florida. I remember we'd go down to like South Florida, and like one time we're on a boat tour and they're like, oh, that's Hulk Hogan's house. Is he canceled, by the way, or do people still talk about him in a good light? I don't know.
You know, Brad, I'm gonna pass it to you first, and then I'll fill in any gaps there.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's on the outs. We'll
Okay.
put it that way. My guess is that he'll have an honor of a thing in memoriam of his career at some point. But we got to keep him off the TV for a while. The moment that I knew it was over for him is a couple of years ago where he hosted with Titus O'Neil. He hosted WrestleMania and he came out and got just thunderous boos. And that's not a thing that would have happened. It's because of the tape. It's the voicemail that was recorded.
Sure.
He hard R'd a whole bunch, and it was very problematic. And looking back at some of the stuff now, it's like, well, he was always kind of doing stuff that he probably shouldn't have. He even choked out the guy who, I can't remember his name, it's Belzer, the LA or not the LA, the Law and Order guy, the actor that just passed.
Oh, sure.
He said it was fake on a TV show, and Hogan just choked him out and then let him go, and then he ended up getting sued because of it. But he's always been kind of a controversial guy. But yeah, he's definitely, I don't know if I could say canceled. It depends on what sect of humanity we're talking about.
Sure. Makes sense.
And Steven, you'll still see him pop up on WWE programming. I think kind of similar to basketball and really professional sports in general. Someone does something egregious, right? A professional wrestler, professional athlete do something egregious, really beyond the pale, as we know Hogan did. And then he's canceled for a certain time period, for a year, 2 years, 3 years. But then it's very cerebral how the company thinks, you know what? We've sent him away. He's been out of the limelight. Let's bring him back. And then your collective nostalgia, your love and your memories with this person will bring you back to loving him. So he's back on programming. He's, once a year. Would you say, Brad, give or take?
Yeah.
You can see a highlight package of him, or he'll be in person for a Legends show.
He's in every episode though, because he's in
video games.
He's in the Then Now Forever package slamming Andre. So he's every time WWE has Raw, SmackDown, Premium Live event, he's always in that intro. You can't remove him from it. They removed him from the Hall of Fame at one point and put him back in.
But I mean, like, it's kind of, he was so monumental for the sport, even before we get into like why he, what he did and all that stuff and his beliefs and like kind of shittiness of a person. But like, as far as like his impact on the sport, like,
undeniable,
unquestionable.
Even for like my half invested aspect as a kid, that's who I knew of. Like, I'm pretty sure I had a Hulk Hogan like action figure at one point in time in my life, and whatnot. And so it's just like, yeah. So circling back to the question, that's kind of like my early ages of wrestling. Now I live in Oakland. All right. So, Oakland's a little like, we're not so mainstream. That's kind of more like what San Francisco is and San Jose down in the South Bay. Oakland's a little bit grimy, a little bit gritty, a little bit street. So we have this thing called Hood Slam, which some of you might know. I was very surprised when you all messaged me that night, like, you're at Hood Slam. Wow, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah. So Hood Slam, for the listeners that don't know, is a East Bay, Oakland-based wrestling league, I will say. And there are some wrestlers, which I didn't know this, are known to outside of Hood Slam League, but it's very much a local thing that kind of tours in the East Bay. They're starting to do some shows back in San Francisco now too. So it is expanding a bit, but that's kind of where my heart desires for wrestling. And it's a good time because it's kind of more of like a party. I guess, should I go into details on what Hood Slam is kind of like all about
Please.
So it's typically at like a bar or a warehouse. If it's at a warehouse, there is a bar set up for it as well. And, drinks are being slung everywhere for the guests to enjoy. In the Bay Area, marijuana is recreationally allowed. So people in the crowd are not only drinking, they're also smoking, enjoying themselves, and having a party. On stage, the characters are, I would say this is more of an R-rated event. The characters are ranging from like good, solid characters. Oh gosh, I forget their name, but there's these brothers that are from like the 50s, Tommy Gun type characters, mafia type guys. I forget their names. But like, you have like that kind of character. Sure. Then you have El Chupacabra, the Chupacabra. He's like a great character. You have oh god, the Viperness, who's an awesome character. But then you have people like the Stoner Brothers, who are these two brothers that come on stage literally smoking blunts. And like that's how they start their game. And then they'll even pass the blunt to the referee, who will smoke it while the match is going on. And it's just a gigantic party. The host, what's his name? Brad or something like that.
Bro, Brad, stealing my Brad's gimmick.
Maybe he might be. I can't remember his name because honestly, most of the time I'm there, I'm a little bit intoxicated myself. But like he walks around in between events and is pouring like shots of whiskey or rum or something straight from the bottle into people's mouths. It's a party. And that's kind of where I enjoy my wrestling these days. As a dad, it's a good night out to get some fun. I'm going to an event next month. I don't know the lineup just yet. I don't know if it's been announced, but I know it's happening. I think kind of in the middle of the month, so that's going to be real fun. Wow. And their whole the other good thing is the crowd interaction, which I'm sure you guys understand with like WWD and AEW. But one of the main chants that gets yelled is "This is real" from the crowd. So the whole crowd just goes, "This is real. This is real." And it's just like, it's hype. It's fun. So to answer your question, Tyler, that's how I kind of got into wrestling. And this is kind of where I am now with wrestling.
Wow. So I'm looking right now, because you said the Stoner Brothers or whatever. The training facility they run is Stoner U. It's literally Stoner U for wrestling training. And on their page, it's a bunch of talent. One of them mocks smoking a blunt, and at the top of the pyramid is Shotzi. So I don't know if Shotzi trained here. Yes, sure. Shotzi Blackheart.
She's from Oakland, yeah.
But the training is handled by Scott Rick Stoner, which is obviously a Rick and Scott Steiner reference. And then, okay, so Scott Rick Stoner, Rick Scott Stoner, Anton Voorhees, and sometimes other special guests. I just love that there's a guy named Scott Rick and a guy named Rick Scott, and their both last names are Stoners.
I love it. And the Voorhees last name is
Voorhees.
Also a choice. As a horror movie fan, I definitely respect that.
Mansoor also seems to have trained there.
That's pretty cool. Another good character in that league is a guy named Drugs Bunny. I just have to bring him up because he comes out in a bunny outfit, and like he's got like a little bag of white powder, which is a substance that other people might do for recreational use. And he plays into that whole thing, and at some point he'll have too much of his drugs and like pass out. There's another character named Mr. Cereal. It's a guy who comes out in a blue cape, and he's got a cereal box on his head, and then like halfway through the match, he'll take out some cereal, eat it, or like if he loses, like the winner will grab the cereal from his head as a form of victory. It's quite a good time. If you guys are ever in the Bay, I'm definitely taking you, and we'll have fun. The first round of beers are on me.
That sounds amazing.
Let's go. That's amazing. Yeah, funny enough, Steven, AEW is having a massive pay-per-view in your neck of the woods next month. It's in San Francisco, admittedly,
Sweet.
but it'll be at the Chase Center.
Yes.
AEW Revolution. It's actually, as we record this, it's next weekend, March 5th, 2023. Nice. So shout out to California. There's a lot of
California
good wrestling happening. Well, as we shared earlier, this episode was kind of created when we were exchanging some messages with Steven, and obviously Dwight Howard appeared at a WWE tryout, and we were like, I think there's something here for the three of us to discuss. So if we were to kind of bring it back quite a few years and really think critically about when did this occur? When did we start seeing some crossover between NBA and WCW, WWF at the time, etc.? I don't know about you guys, but the first idea that popped in my mind, which was validated by the research that I tried to conduct, occurred in the glorious year of 1998. It was actually July 12th, 1998, at WCW's Bash at the Beach pay-per-view. There was an epic tag match that occurred on the show, fellas. Diamond Dallas Page teamed with Karl Malone to take on the aforementioned Hulk Hogan, or at this time, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. He was a bad guy. and his tag partner, the one and only the Worm, Dennis Rodman.
Yes.
So this received Rodzilla. And he had the T-shirt in the match as well. Master marketer Dennis Rodman. So this match received so much publicity. Obviously, Malone and Rodman had a rivalry going on. The Jazz and the Bulls face each other in the finals. So this was a pretty epic deal, guys. Steven, I can already see you nodding your head. Were you aware of this occurring at the time back in 98, or did you come to it later on?
I was definitely like 7, 8 years old at that time. So I was not aware of that. And that was even before I was like, I mean, I knew of like the NBA and obviously like followed some of the big names, but wasn't like super into the details, just too young as a kid. But as an adult, I definitely know about it. I actually just rewatched clips of that match this afternoon. So what a good match, what a good rivalry for so many different reasons too. And like such an impactful era, like you were mentioning with the Bulls and the Jazz and everything that was going on with those franchises. You have like the big bad boy that everyone hates in the NBA with Dennis Rodman. Even if you didn't like the NBA, you didn't like Rodman because he was just such a, from an NBA perspective, he was such a bad boy in his own right. He kind of like modernized, guys kind of doing what they want and expressing themselves how they want. He was in the news all the time for something bad. Like one time he came out of a limo wearing a wedding dress, right? Yeah. Which is a big famous thing. And that rubbed, the conservative population a really wrong way. He had all these piercings all over his face. He had tattoos everywhere, constantly changing his hair color. Mm-hmm. And like, that wasn't seen in the NBA. That was new. And really, I think in certain parts of the sports world, like that wasn't really seen a whole lot in like the NFL either during that time frame. So it's like, he really kind of opened up the door, and he had this like, I don't care attitude. I mean, the dude was literally homeless. Like he grew up like, he had a really rough childhood. There's like, incredible documentary, I think like a 30 for 30 on him on Netflix, which really explains like kind of why he is who he is. I actually had a chance to like interact with him one time and meet him. And like, he's an interesting dude. But definitely a few screws knocked loose in his head. But for wrestling, like that's kind of all you want, right? You want a character who is over the top,
so true,
obnoxious, doing their own thing. And that is Dennis Rodman checking every single box in wrestling. Yeah. And then you get, Karl Malone. It was just this big beefcake, tough guy, like, the mailman. And what a heck of a match that was.
Indeed.
Yeah, he showed up way earlier than that. So that was the second Rodman run in WCW. Right. What I remember is the year before. So it was 97. I looked up the date. It was March 10th, 1997. He showed up and aligned himself with the NWO and Hulk Hogan, which is why he
of bad boys, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's why I think he ended up teaming with Hogan later on. And I know Hogan
had a relationship for a while, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Even like a few years ago. I don't know if they're still homies now, but like there was a while where Hulk Hogan was like showing up on his Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I still think they keep in touch, and I know they made a lot of money, those two together, just doing that one thing. And I know Malone saw what Rodman was doing and went, I got to do that. And in interviews, Hogan has said the strongest person he's ever been in the ring with was Karl Malone, the way he picked him up like he was just nothing and dumped him like he was nothing. He said, I've never been handled like that in my entire life. Karl Malone was the strongest guy. So to have an NBA player go into the wrestling world, and a wrestler that's been, in Japan, in WCW, in the AWA, WWF, all over the place, go, yeah, that was the strongest guy I've ever been in the ring with, is definitely saying something. But that was probably the first that I remember it ever having crossover with basketball players, especially in the NBA, being in a wrestling ring.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I am getting to our first, I guess, formal question of this episode. Super curious. Who are some old school NBA players who you guys believe would have been great wrestlers? I want to give you my two because I can, and then sure. I want to hear your list. So two guys come to mind, and hopefully I'm not stepping on your toes. I thought about who Brad would pick, being that I know this gent pretty well, and I didn't want to step on his toes there.
Can I throw Steven, a caveat in here real quick? Can we like leave out Dennis Rodman and Shaq since they've already
Of
like
course.
made their impact on this and like find some new character?
No,
Cool.
nobody
Because like
that's
Shaq
already
also
been
like
there.
we didn't
Yeah.
really get to talk about him, but like Shaq also has like such a great connection. And obviously Shaq with Orlando, like back in the day, but like anyways. All right. So Tyler, who you got, man?
Yeah, those are terms we can agree on, Stephen. I love it. So I am starting with the one and only Sir Charles Barkley. Maybe it's the Suns fan in me and my love for that 93 finals team. But it has to be Chuck to start. If you talk about who would be a great promo in wrestling, right? Who can just get a microphone and just create magic? It's got to be Charles Barkley. My second choice was tougher. I thought of two guys in particular, and Stephen, I know we'll get to this later. Something we see in basketball and in wrestling are the beauty of rivalries. For my second and final choice, I am going to cheat and kind of choose two dudes here. Arguably the greatest one-on-one rivalry in the history of basketball. Larry Legend, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson.
Oh, gosh.
I'm cheating, but I have to.
Cheating.
So I think both of these guys would be awesome. Larry Bird could totally embody the sort of quote unquote everyday man, right? They called him the hick from French Lick. I think he could be a massive draw in the Midwest. And then on the other side of things, you talk about glitz and glamour, you talk about Hollywood. It's the Magic Man. It's Magic Johnson, a smile that could light up a room. Those are my choices. Who are you guys rolling with? I think we'll start with Steven and then kick it over to Brad.
Okay. So I think my first choice is Kevin Garnett. He is the big ticket. He's got a killer nickname because I think in wrestling you got to have a good name, right?
Absolutely.
So that's one of the reasons why he came to mind. Two, he is an insane defender, which being a good defender means you got to be tough. And KG, he's a scary, tough dude. I would not like. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'd be really intimidated just standing in front of him in the same room in a non-wrestling environment. So you put him in a ring, like that dude. The NBA has a lot of hold me back moments, which if fake toughness, guys, puffing their chest, rarely any swings. But Kevin Garnett, he's a guy like he's not fake tough. He's real tough. So, and he's just got a big personality, big, loud, booming voice. He could do the storylines that you want in wrestling. So he's my first pick. And then another thing that I like to think about with NBA players and like the connection with wrestling is just like people that have paved their own way, right? That aren't afraid to go against the grain because you need that in wrestling. I really do believe that. So I'm going to go. This is a fun one because he's not like a typical body that you would think, but Allen Iverson, right? So
wow,
guard,
the answer,
like, yeah,
AI.
Thought about that too.
Okay. And he might get his ass kicked a little bit too much in wrestling. He might not have a long career because he's short, small. His body started breaking down, like in the middle of his NBA career. So that might have similar effect in the wrestling ring. But, he's another guy that really had a huge impact on NBA culture. Like, I think he was one of the first players to have cornrows. And then all of a sudden, it opened up that for the league. He was the first player. Tattoos that opened up a lot of things, and NBA, as much as we like to, this is kind of like the negative aspect of the NBA is like, as much as like it's very much a white collar sport as far as the audience that is playing to a lot of the time. And there's like some like weird white man watching black men like doing the thing, kind of like, and this is like way deep if you get into it, but like he just broke so many stereotypes and made so much of like the high up people uncomfortable with just his personality, ways doing things. And you need that in wrestling, in my opinion. You need people to push limits and boundaries of their sport and even within the rules that they're confined in. And so that's why I also pick Allen Iverson. Now, granted, you put him up to almost any wrestler, he's probably going to get his ass kicked, but he's street, he's fun, he's got a good personality, and he's going to like do things his way. So those are my two, big ticket and the answer.
We're talking about practice, Steven. I love both of those choices, particularly Kevin Garnett. And then I want to hear from Brad because Kevin Garnett, totally embodies a quality that the most successful wrestlers have, which is he can be a heel or a bad guy, but he can also be a baby face or a good guy, right?
Yeah.
Depending on
Right.
what you need him to do or
Totally.
the storyline, he can play either. So great selections by you, man.
I'm trying.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because Draymond's sitting there right now, like heel on top of the universe. I also thought Kendrick Perkins would be a good one. These are my honorable
Ooh,
mentions.
sure.
And
The face of
Chris
ESPN.
Anderson, the Birdman is meant to
Birdman.
be. He is meant to be in a
Wow.
professional wrestling ring.
Wow.
But I thought this when I was growing up. He has acting experience. I'm not going to say chops, because he starred in the hit Space Jam. I'm going small. I'm going Muggsy Bogues on
Ooh.
shoulders alone. That guy would tear it up in the smaller division. I could see him being a Rey Mysterio, a Chad Gable type character, just throwing bigger dudes around. Sure, if it was a real fight, like a lot of those guys would probably demolish him. But I just remember his side to side quickness being incredible. I loved that dude growing up, because I thought, well, if he could do it and he's only that tall, well, maybe I got a chance here at 5'7".
There you
Talk
go.
your talk. Amen.
Yeah,
Amen.
absolutely.
Brad,
It
can
resonates.
we do a little like Muggsy Bogues versus Allen Iverson matchup?
Oh,
like
it'll be incredible, right?
similar,
Yeah.
similar, shorter on the scale, because I think Muggsy's like under 6 foot, and like Allen Iverson is like probably under 6 foot as well.
My only
sure.
hesitation with Muggsy was that, like, I think Iverson eats him on the mic. That's the only thing, because Muggsy, I don't know if he has the chops. So I'm pairing Muggsy with Paul Heyman. My second wrestler on here, because I had those as my honorables, I wasn't sure which way I'd go, is a way that neither of you went. I'm going Candace Parker as my
Ooh.
second option. I think Candace Parker would be a perfect fit. I thought Tarasi would also be a really good fit, but I love Candace Parker so much. So she has the look, she has the skill athletically. I think she'd be a great talker. I think Candace Parker would be an excellent professional wrestler.
Excellent picks, dude.
I think he blew us out of the water there, Steven. I was
Yeah.
not expecting not only the love for
Muggsy
Muggsy.
Bogues.
I thought about Spud Webb, but I think Muggsy
Yes,
is
I
an
thought that
even-
too. Yeah.
an even
Yeah.
more elite choice. But Steven, my man came with some WNBA love and chose the
solid.
ace, Candace
Solid.
Parker. Brad, that
Good
was
option.
The gimmick is already
Love it.
there. Like
Yeah.
she just needs
True.
ring gear.
She's
It's done. Yeah.
yeah.
And she is a good speaker as well. She's
Yeah.
she's on TV all the
Yep,
time.
all the time.
She's had her own podcast
Phenomenal.
with Kristen Ledlow. I don't know if they're still doing it anymore, but they had a podcast for a while. She's comfortable in front of the camera. She would hold her own. That's a great pick, Brad.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think it would rule. And now I want to see it. Now it needs to happen.
Yeah, right. Now we need to have that Muggsy versus AI, at least in their prime, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah. Time
grown
machine.
men
Yeah.
enjoying retirement.
We're gonna
now.
need that Looney Tunes technology to pull them out of reality, steal their talent.
I got a question for you guys. And Tyler, you kind of like, we talked about it earlier, and I feel like this is like a perfect spot to bring it up, because like we're talking about retired NBA players, and at some point we're going to talk about current NBA players or basketball players if we decide to, if there's more WNBA players, that's awesome.
Yeah, let's do it.
But so my question is, I want to hit up the Dwight Howard topic when he interviewed there, because he like was on a team last year. He's playing over in Taiwan right now. Who knows? I doubt he plays in the NBA again, but he technically he hasn't retired yet. So I kind of, and it's too early for me to say he's not going to get like one more chance. So he's kind of on that fringe. I personally think he checks a lot of boxes for wrestling, but as people who understand the sport really deeply, I'd like to hear your perspective on if you think Dwight would make a good wrestler or not for the league and for the sport in general.
Yeah. Phenomenal question, Steven. So there have been several collegiate basketball players that became successful professional wrestlers. Brad and I were going over this list before we recorded. On the men's side of things, you have Big Bill Morrissey, who's in AEW. He was not a star college player by any means in New York, but the dude's 7 feet tall and is now a really good wrestler. More notably, The Undertaker had a prep hoop career, and he's one of the most successful dudes of wrestling ever. Kevin Nash. Brad, you even brought up Satnam Singh, who's in the early parts of his career, but I mean, he played for the Dallas Mavericks, did he not?
Yeah, he played on their developmental league, in the developmental league, and then he played up in Canada for a couple of years before signing with AEW. I just read a piece from the New York Times on him.
Amazing. So would Dwight Howard make a good professional
At
wrestler?
37.
Yeah. Well, and in wrestling, some of the top people in the sport, particularly on the men's side of the roster, are in their late
That's
30s.
true. That's true.
Unlike the NBA where you're thinking, okay, maybe 30 is sort of your peak athletic prime.
That makes sense.
Roman Reigns is what, 37, 38 right now? Kenny
Yeah,
Omega's
and
pushing 40.
I'm trying to figure it out right now. In 2002, I don't know how. Come on, load, man.
Dwight
Dave
is all. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Dave Bautista debuted in 2002,
Yes, late bloomer.
and I'm trying to find, he was born in 69.
He was 30
not
when he started training.
Yeah,
right?
he was not young when he started professional wrestling, and still had a pretty decent career that transitioned right into film and television. I don't know that Dwight Howard has that level of charisma.
Fair.
Yeah,
He can be a little corny in front of the camera.
I'm
He
a
smiles
bit
hard.
I'm a
Yeah.
bit skeptical as well. I mean, athletically, especially, I mean, Steven, you know this as well as anyone. Early Dwight Howard, even leading up to that finals run, he was just an athletic.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just dominating dudes in the league surely off of athleticism. I mean, he brought, who was on that squad, Steven? Hito Turkoglu,
Rashard Lewis,
Rafer Alston,
Jameer Nelson,
Jameer,
yeah,
Matt Barnes, right?
Matt Barnes. Yeah, he was on there. He was
Not a
on the Magic
world-class
for about a year
squad.
and a half.
Yeah.
Good players for sure, but yeah, definitely not the physical specimen that Dwight Howard was, and still is. The dude is like in immaculate shape, but he's had some injuries. You know, he's not as athletic as he used to be. I think physically he actually could do it, but
Sure.
I do wonder if personality wise, if he would be accepted. I feel like he'd have to like really like get the right role. And that's not an intimidator role because I don't think anyone's going to take his face serious if he's trying to be
Right.
angry. He'd have to like lean into like a fun character. And I just don't know if that's accepted in modern wrestling anymore, you know?
It totally is. It's just there's a lot of them already, and I don't know
Mhm.
that that new character coming in and the way that he would work anyway, I think would be a lot less, I don't know, problematic for his body, just because they, especially if he went to the WWE, they'd have him working as a big man. So there wouldn't be he's not jumping off the top rope. We'll put it that way. He's walking over the top rope and
Sure.
he's going to choke slam or power bomb or somebody. So there's a lot of lifting, but he's not going to be taking crazy bumps off ladders into a stack of chairs or something.
So thumbs up or thumbs down? Are we voting yes for Dwight or no for Dwight?
Full time? Or just in
career
some
shift.
shows?
I mean, like anyone, I'm not gonna say anyone. I think he could totally do like a 1 or 2 time show, but like it would, give him a contract for like a 1 or 2 years. Are we giving him a 2-year contract?
Oh, if that case, yeah, I can see him doing it.
I'm gonna
Okay,
go.
cool.
Yeah,
I'm going no.
I can see him.
I'm
I can
going
see him
no.
doing it and then
Wow.
immediately not.
I mean,
doing
I
it
think
anymore.
he'd get the contract. I think he'd flame out. I don't think anyone would take him seriously. So
Wow, yeah.
I think if they gave him a 1 year, I agree with you. I don't think he goes more than a year anyway.
yeah,
But if it does work out and he can go on commentary, they can have him doing interviews or
sure.
those like at the outside of the arena segments where he's meeting with people. And we're here live from WrestleMania. We're outside, and you can talk to Peter Rosenberg and all those people.
I think, yeah, I guess I sort of like answered to a different question that I asked. I think he would get a contract. I don't think he would do well in it as far as like being a regular wrestler that's in consistent events.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
As an attraction, I think he works. As a
Big personality.
Like just a wrestler. I don't know. I'm probably not.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, and WWE in particular, as of late, has done really well with integrating celebrities.
Mhm.
So Logan Paul is going to be fighting at this year's WrestleMania, and he's been really universally praised by wrestling fans, hardcore wrestling fans, because the dude has athletic gifts that we maybe just underestimated. He's been put and booked in really great spots so far. So there's Logan Paul. Prior to that, there was Floyd Mayweather, who I'll never forget.
Bad Bunny, man.
Fought Bad Bunny. Thank you. Floyd Mayweather fought the Big Show. But this was 10, 15 years ago. They didn't necessarily have a match. It was more Floyd got Big Show on one knee, punched him, and then Floyd ended up winning. So like you said, though, Brad, Bad Bunny's been a smash success. He's not 7 feet tall, by any means. It doesn't have a
No.
history of injuries, but he's been a massive success for WWE.
So is Gronkowski. Gronk, when he retired.
Definitely.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, when he
Definitely.
retired, he came in.
Retirement.
Yeah, his first retirement.
Exactly. Yep.
He went there. He won the 24/7 championship, which means literally nothing. They a couple of months ago they had one of the characters take it and dump it in a trash can because it was like, let's get rid of this thing. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
But Gronk was 24/7 champion, and he would have been very successful if he came back. I wouldn't be shocked, and I think he'll have a great run in WWE as like once in a while doing some wrestling stuff, but mostly being on commentary, kind of like what Pat McAfee has done. And I think that would work really well. I think Dwight doesn't quite have that to be able to do that. And like you said, physically, athletically, he has all of those things, but I don't think the Superman cape's coming out in the middle of a ring. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I agree with there. He would have to come up with a totally different like character.
Mhm. Well, before we get to our selections of current NBA players, why do you guys think that there is such a strong correlation between fans of wrestling also loving hoops and vice versa? What do these two very different forms of entertainment share? Stephen, I think you shined a light on this earlier regarding just the spectacle and pomp and circumstance and the rivalries that are built and the storylines that are generated. So without stealing too much of your magic, what do you think the correlation is? I got you. What do you think the correlation is between these two very different forms of entertainment?
I think now, when it comes to the NBA versus, I'll say like the NFL, the NBA is very much storyline driven on individual players, right? It is a team sport for sure, but you fall in love with players on a team because of who they are as people. Particularly now in a social media world where you have so much insight, you fall in love from them from like early high school rumors to their college play, to then like their ability to be on a court. Plus, if are they charismatic or not? Like a lot of we can talk about the difference between like someone like Nikola Jokic, who is like one of the two-time MVP, about to get his third MVP most likely this season, and even like Luka, but throw them to someone like like LeBron or Cole Anthony from the Orlando Magic, or I'm just trying to think of a couple other examples. I'm blanking right now, but you're falling in love with these guys that have bigger personalities where it's like, sure, people love Jokic, but people love LeBron more because he's got that that charismatic aspect to him as a person. So I think it all is about like the storyline of the individual, right? And that is something that is shared where like in the NFL, yeah, like there is the story of like Tom Brady or Drew Brees or whatever, or Gronk even, but it's really more about the team versus as much as basketball is a team sport, there's individuals within the team that get promoted more by the league. The league just, I mean, you look at the logo of the two leagues, one is a shield, one is an individual player. And so it's just sort of like how the league is even promoting people, right?
Right.
And so that's just like, I think that's part of the reason why you see so much connection between NBA fans and wrestling fans or both that just enjoy both sports, is because there's storylines within the team of the NBA of individuals on the team, which then correlates to I'm following the story of X wrestler in this league, and so like that's kind of where I think the big connection is, at least from my point of view.
Yeah, that's amazing. Brad, how about you?
Yeah, I think storylines it's the thread that connects the two. I think also spectacle, the way that it is like, okay, I don't remember if they're doing it on TNT or TBS right now for, in particular, the Young Bucks before they play Carry On, Wayward Son. They've been using the NBA on NBC theme.
Yeah,
they've been using Round Ball Rock. Yeah.
Yep.
And
a lot of crossover.
When I think about NBA, like when Round Ball Rock would play and those squares would start spinning and tons of Michael Jordan footage on there, that was my childhood. I love that. But that got me so hyped for the game. I was stoked. Wrestling starts, they play the intro music, that original like WWF Monday Night Raw, where stuff's just crap's blowing up in the background and they're playing that heavy metal stuff and Stone Cold's walking by like barrels that are on fire and they're fighting in the ring and everything is on fire. There's rockets and stuff. That absolutely ruled. It got me super excited for it. And I think that sports, especially the NBA, does a lot of that probably better than anybody else. And like you said, with spectacle, I think they're the announcements, if it's making their way to the ring at this time, weighing 200 and whatever pounds, or Orange Cassidy wearing whatever from wherever, all that stuff. That's great. I love that. But we do the same thing. You can hear a Sirius playing in the background for Chicago Bulls entrance. The lights go out, the Bulls things on the center court. And then I'm going to announce all of these people coming to the court at this time. So a lot of the presentation is really, really similar. There's a lot of overlap. And I think everybody wants to know how the story is going to play out. These brothers are playing each other. These people came from a background that they used to be teammates, but now they're rivals. All of these things always get threaded through to make it more interesting, because we go, this is going to be a good matchup. No, in the NBA, even here's why we should care and invest ourselves in the story of the game, not just in the game itself. It's how is this storyline going to play out? The players aren't thinking of it that way. The players are like, I got to do this. This is our game plan. We need to execute it. But they might be thinking of it a little bit. But when you watch it on TV, it's like, no, pay attention to these things. And commentary is going to tell you what to pay attention to, just like in a wrestling match. By God, JR is calling. Somebody just got broken in half. All of those things are happening on the commentary team for an NBA game too. So I just think, Tyler and I say this all the time, but everything is wrestling. We have press conferences afterward where we got NBA players cutting promos, like or nothing at all, and it's totally uninteresting. But
sure.
Either way, it's all sort of overlapping. It's all a show. It's a spectacle, because we don't get nearly that level of stuff happening in all of collegiate basketball anyway. But it does happen on the larger stages.
Yeah, I have a few ideas here. One, I think the NBA probably does the most effective job of any of the professional sports leagues at creating individual stars. My father absolutely loves baseball, and I've wanted to really get into it. Like I need to know who's on the Yankees roster this year. I need to watch some of the games so that I can
pick Mike Trout out of a lineup.
I can hold in a conversation, but precisely, Brad.
Yeah.
I don't know if the MLB really promotes stars the way they should. The Mike Trouts, Shohei Ohtani's. I think people do know Aaron Judge, but these aren't household names. To your point, Stephen, like a LeBron James or like a Stephen Curry, a Giannis, so on and so forth. Secondly, I love for All-Star Weekend. I don't love All-Star Game itself. I think you might be like-minded, Stephen.
Yeah.
It's a total exhibition that I've grown to just not enjoy at all.
Sure.
But the night prior is so much better. So much like wrestling with gimmick matches, a ladder match, a Hell in a Cell match. All-Star Weekend, Saturday night, you have the slam dunk contest, the skills challenge, the 3-point contest, even the celebrity game.
Right.
Brad, this year, The Miz hit a half-court shot that didn't count. So everything is wrestling. Yes, I agree. And there was a final point I was going to bring up too. Maybe it'll come to me, but I so agree with you guys. I think basketball and wrestling, there's just a lot of the fan base that crosses over.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that being said, thinking about the current relationship between hoopers and wrestling, we know there are some very famous basketball players who share their love of this business. For example, Damian Lillard, Dame Time himself, arrived to a game about a year or two ago, I believe, in full Stone Cold cosplay. So you can totally look this up. It's a little bit of nightmare fuel. Like I respect him. Halloween, exactly. I respect him wearing the black Stone Cold tee with the jorts. But he had the headpiece as well of Stone Cold, the total mask, which was just, is Dame a serial killer? On the low? I don't know. Yeah. I enjoyed this one much more. Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks. had pregame matches
Yes.
in arena tunnels. Steven, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here. I think this was right around the time they were ascending to their championship, defeating our beloved Phoenix Suns, unfortunately. So this was 2020, 2021.
I think even the year before that in the
Even
bubble,
before.
well, they were,
Yeah.
because they did it for like a year or two on and off, depending on the
Absolutely.
players that were on the team. And like,
Yeah.
it was hilarious watching.
So
It's great.
good.
Yeah, it was great.
It was like, yeah, because this was when they had Robin Lopez was also on the team.
That's right.
That was the
Broken
bubble year.
Robin,
In the
right?
after year, he was on the Magic. And yeah, that's such a good team, such a good memory of like the connection there too. Sorry, I'll let you carry on, Tyler. Sorry.
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah, it was a blast to watch. Even though I know these dudes are responsible for my heartbreak of summer 2021, I can go on YouTube and enjoy Giannis. I think undeniably the best player in the world, just like DDTing his teammate, because this guy just loves wrestling, and he's from Greece. So wrestling, like basketball being so international, is I think also a similarity here. Brad, you mentioned earlier AEW being on TBS and TNT, and crossover we've seen with promotion there. So we have wrestlers like Bayley in WWE who played collegiately. Jade Cargill in AEW played collegiate basketball. So that leads us to our big final question here. Who are some current NBA and or WNBA players who would be great wrestlers? I will start with mine, just like last time, fellas. So
Can
first,
I go last? Because I got a list. I got a list. And if you guys take it, I want to be able to pivot, and I don't want to take someone that you've already mentioned.
You got it, my man. So I definitely want to give a WNBA shout out. I wore the hoodie and wasn't even going to select any WNBA players. That's
nice.
Absolutely unforgivable. So thanks for being a great role model, Brad. I want to give an honorable mention to Kelsey Plum of the WNBA. Friends of mine will know that I've had a long time crush on her, but I think she would be a great wrestler because she's super charismatic, and I think quickly is becoming a real pillar of the league. Super charismatic. I remember her at the championship ceremony coming in with her champagne bottle and her goggles and just really feeling herself. So I think she's dripping charisma and would be uber successful. My two official selections, though, are two guys of perhaps not superstar level fame, but I am confidently selecting them. My first choice, fellas, I'm going with Pat Bev. Of course, I had to choose Pat Beverly.
Yes,
if you had to, I appreciate the affirmation. If you are trying to select someone who absolutely has a Napoleon complex, I say that knowing he's like a solid 6'1", 6'2", which is not a small guy by regular life standards. But in the NBA, he's pretty diminutive. We know this guy is a great promo. I mean, not even at press conferences, but Steven, Brad, in the game, this dude is chirping. This dude is getting in the face of Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook in the past. I mean, I think this selection is an obvious
one. That was a home run pick.
That was a great one.
I appreciate you.
I was not expecting that. Now he was not on my list, but whoo, man, that was good.
Listen, you guys set the bar high, and I tried to deliver here. My second choice hopefully will also get love from you both and perhaps our listeners or viewers out there. This man is a basketball player. He is an actor. He is just a great ambassador for anything he touches. You may have seen him in one of many State Farm commercials. You may have seen him in John Wick. I am going with Boban for my second choice.
It's a good one.
This guy is huge.
2 home runs, dude.
It's so good.
Thank you. I think he's listed at 7'2" or 7'3". So we know that there have been several just gigantic men who have made money in the industry, not from being the best workers or putting on 30-minute matches, but just being truly larger than life. Andre the Giant, the Big Show, the list goes on and on. So Boban is my choice. Great baby face, right? People love themselves some Boban, but I also think he could easily turn into a bad guy or heel if that's what the script demanded. Totally. So honorable mention to Kelsey. Love Kelsey. Shout out Kelsey Plum always. But I'm going to go Pat Bev and Boban here. Great, Brad. Let's go.
Picks, dude.
I appreciate you guys.
I don't know how I can handle, I don't think I'm going to stack up to that. My list is good, but that's That's good. All
Oh
right,
man,
man, what you got,
Well,
man?
I'm
beaming
looking
right
at
now, Brad.
I'm looking at the list, and there's some obvious people up there like Giannis, LeBron, Zion, like those three alone, uh, Ja even like I could see that, but I'm not picking. That's not where I'm going. My first pick is probably, maybe it's surprising, maybe it's not. This guy has been around the block. He didn't dunk for about a year, what felt like his entire Pistons career. He has stand-up comedian
Ooh,
experience. I'm going Blake
I love
Griffin
this.
for my first pick. I think Blake
Yes.
Griffin has the charisma to be a bad guy, to be a good guy, babyface, heel, whatever you need him to be. He can be in comedy spots. He can be serious and beat people up. I think he's a great choice. Body type, size, charisma, look, all of it, total package. I think Blake Griffin would be an excellent professional wrestler. My second pick, and this was really way more difficult than I thought. Kelsey Plum, yes, was one of the people that I had on my list. I didn't go women's on this pick. Uh, I thought about pulling the trigger here on Mac McClung, because I
Ooh,
think it would be amazing
Wow.
to have the dunk
Talk
champ.
about a relevant name these days.
I
Yes.
know. I think his press conference didn't give me a ton of confidence in the charisma, but there was potential there. And the dude is just freakishly athletic for how small he is. I have to go back down to Miami, and I have to poke around in Miami a little bit for Jimmy Butler. Jimmy
oh,
Jimmy Butler, I feel
yes.
like is a
That's
natural fit
He
for
was on my
professional
list.
wrestling.
That's great.
I mean, the reactions we have so many gifs of just Jimmy Butler reacting to things that I can't see him not in front of a camera reacting to things in wrestling segments. I think he would be great. He'd be especially great as a heel, working as a babyface and not understanding why people hate him. I could see tons of potential there for Jimmy Butler. I think he's a
Well,
great pick.
he started a coffee brand in the bubble called Big Face Coffee too. And so it's just like,
I didn't realize
and,
that.
and it didn't matter what you ordered,
Yeah.
it was $20 a cup.
Of
You
course.
Yes.
know, you could have been espresso, it could have been cappuccino, $20 regardless. So, Brad, I'm a little sad you actually took that, because that was one of my like hopeful sleeper picks. Excellent choice there. Excellent
Appreciate
choice.
that.
I
Yeah.
love those picks.
Yeah, man, that's phenomenal. This man, and shout out to good friend of the show and good friend in real life, Ben Anderson of Marana, Arizona, longtime Timberwolves fan. Jimmy Butler, he had that infamous practice, right, where he
Yeah.
reportedly
Yep.
just cut a promo on all of his teammates and said, Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, everybody in this joint, you guys are not on my level, and just went to town on him. So
That's what I'm saying.
I agree with
Professional
Stephen,
wrestling.
Brad. Excellent way to close out your picks here.
So my pick. So I got a couple, right? So obviously I'm gonna have to pivot because you just took Jimmy Butler, which is fine. This is why I have a list. So my first guy that I have selected, and both of mine are in the NBA. This gentleman is probably one of the most intimidating humans in the league. He there was recently a scuffle with a Hall of Fame NFL player that was watching the game and got off the court. This gentleman, and he was the only person that didn't even look at this guy that was standing on the floor. He has incredible hair. And he's got an amazing accent and just is like in his own world. His name is Steven Adams. And
That's great.
That's a
he
That's a great one.
he like sets the hardest screens in the NBA. He's probably like, people talk about him like he's the strongest person in the NBA. And he is just like, he's a beefcake. And he's from Australia, and he's gonna destroy anyone who touches him. He's not fake tough. He's real tough and got a great personality, great look. He's great on the microphone too.
Yeah, he's perfect. He's a
I
perfect
think
heavy.
That's phenomenal, Steve.
It's a
that's
great pick.
Great
that's
sleeper
my
pick.
pick. Then gosh, if I really have to, so my two were Steven Adams and Jimmy, but I have a couple others. So I'm gonna pivot. I think in wrestling, and he's already kind of made some. Now I'll save him. Honorable mention, Trey Young. he's
Yes.
kind of already
He's
had
appeared
like
on WWE
Yeah,
once.
he
appeared,
has.
Yeah.
he's already
That's right.
everyone kind of hates him already. Everyone you
Yes.
need a good villain. He'd be a
He was there
great
as a heel.
villain.
Yeah, he was in New York. They brought him out in New
They
York.
brought him
Yep.
in New
Right,
York.
not too
I
long after
saw
the
that.
Hawks beat
It was
the
like a
Knicks.
day
Yeah.
after. Or
Exactly.
something like that.
Yeah, great heel.
So he's on the list because he's just like a perfect type of villain who's like obviously amazing at what he does, but he's kind of a dick and like there's a lot of drama around him. So
So
like
true.
I feel like he's a good one to have up there, but that's not my pick. You know, I could do LeBron James. Like he's incredible. Obviously, a legend. He could play in the NFL. He could play in any league he wants. He's like an athletic freak for like 6'10", 200 something pounds, jumps out of the roof. He's someone, but that's not who I'm going with either. But he is on my list. Honorable mentions. Giannis, obviously, just like another huge honorable mention. I'm gonna go. He's probably not going to have a very long career. I'm signing this guy more for his personality than anything else, but I'm going with Cole Anthony from the Orlando Magic
Oh,
because I think really you need personality in the wrestling. And Cole Anthony, if you've ever watched any of his side court interviews, and he's had quite a few, he is a funny dude. He is not afraid of the moment. He will talk anyone's ear off on the microphone. He's kind of like a less annoying version of Dwight, but still brings that big moment personality. But the dude's like, but he is a short basketball player and he's good personality. I think, and he's got athleticism too. He was in the dunk contest last year. I feel like that pick is okay. I don't love it as my second solid option. I feel like I've left a lot of meat on the table. But like we kind of already talked about some of these guys. We talked about Ja Morant, who's like his team is a villain team right now in the NBA. Maybe that's another option. I'm just gonna run through some.
They were baby faces. They made a real transition over the last year.
Did.
They were the sort of cool. We want to root for them. They're young and don't know any better.
Everyone
now they're feeling themselves a little bit too much for our liking, right?
Another player that I thought would be good is the Claw, Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard.
He's got a great nickname. The problem is I don't think he'd be available enough. He's constantly injured and taking rest days.
Load management.
I once had an incredible friend gave me he took his wedding gift to me was courtside tickets to a Clippers Magic game in Los Angeles. And I got to see Kawhi Leonard in person, and that dude is a machine. He is a robot. And I feel like that is like, he's just so gifted athletically. He's got such smooth, fluid movement. I just feel like he would get anywhere he wants on in the ring. And he's just a specimen physically. So I feel like he is a great option, but he doesn't have the personality. He doesn't have the charisma to go with it. He probably wouldn't win a lot of fans over as far as like that. I kind of want to bring, he's not current, but I feel like I have to bring this for the past one. We totally messed over him. Kobe Bryant. How did we
I was
not
just thinking about it.
Black Mamba, killer
Yeah.
mentality,
Checks all the boxes.
checks every single box, athletic freak. He should have been mentioned in our other segment. So I think if I'm grading all of our picks, Magic NBA wise, you guys got home runs on both of yours. I'm giving myself a home run and then like a single or a double with my second. I feel like I underwhelmed a little bit with that Cole Anthony pick, probably because no one knows him yet.
But they do now, and you're still batting 1,000, my man. So
yeah. Oh, sorry, that's not my pick. Terrence Ross.
Phoenix
Sun.
Yeah,
Terrence Ross. The reason why, athletic freak. Dude, he can jump. He was the oldest man on the Magic at 32, and he was the best dunker in the entire team. And that's not a shade on any of the Magic dunkers, because we got some guys that can really do some cool stuff. But he's an insane freak of nature when it comes to his athletic abilities. But he's got the personality, and he loves superheroes and characters and comics. His nickname is the Human Torch. Because he just gets hot fast. So like when he comes in, his matches aren't going to be these long drag out matches. He's going to come in, light them up, get real hot, and then probably lose because he lost a lot of games in Orlando. Probably, if he's now, now that he's changed teams, maybe he'll start getting some more W's. But I think he's a great fit.
The Goldberg of losses.
Yeah. Still, that's probably a double hit or triple, not a home run. I take the L in this round, guys.
Well, guys, this was such a great time. The Close-Up Magic GI, the first of hopefully many collabs. Steven, quite simply, where can we follow you and support your work?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thanks for having me on the show, fellas. This was a lot of fun. When we were talking about like possibly recording for an hour, I'm like, there's no way they're gonna talk to me about wrestling for an hour. I'm gonna bore them out. But we did it, and for me, it was a really entertaining conversation. You guys do killer work. You can find me on Twitter. That's my most active social media for people. Stephen, STEPHEN 0610. It's if you're watching on YouTube, it's right there. I will talk your ear off about Orlando Magic basketball or just the NBA in general. So holler at me. My DMs are always open.
Amazing. Brad, you got anything before we close out?
No, this was a blast. I'm glad we got to do this. This is something that we've been talking about doing for a pretty long time now, and I'm just glad we were able to make it happen. This is a blast.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. Please be sure to support Steven's work. He is awesome. He's a great friend, just a great artist and great creator. So show him some love. Show us some love. We're at GIPod19 on Twitter. Brad is at Winduster. I am at Tyler J. McDowell. And we hope you'll join us for the next one. Gimmick Infringement is a part of 19 Media Group. You can listen to us on Good Pods, our premier partners, and Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube via the 19 Media Group channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.